Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philip Tesoriero. I'm going to be your trainer this afternoon, and my background is specifically the area of human resources. Over a number of years, have developed an expertise in the fields of human resources and, of course, in the management skills. Today, what I want to cover with you specifically is, as you can see up here, the role of the manager. The role of the manager in today's world is very, very important. What I have found is that overall, a manager or supervisor oversees three major functions: the people, the processes, and the technical end of the business. What I want to cover with you today, very specifically, is the people side. Let's look at it. On the technical end, which includes such things as workflow, TQM, quality, productivity, and budgets, and processes that apply to both sides are planning, organizing, directing, and controlling, problem solving, time management, leadership, motivation, etc. What we're going to cover today is your ability to become good communicators. The people side of the business is very important, and one that we continue to work on day to day so as we can develop better relationships with the people who either report to us, those that are on the same level as us, the customer, and of course our superiors. Let's look at this area of communication. Communication is, unfortunately, many times a taken for granted function. We tell people, we speak to people, we hold meetings, thinking all the while that oftentimes they're listening, paying attention, and absorbing what we find we need to tell them about. Well, I have found that in our role as managers or supervisors, the skill of interviewing is a crucial one, and yet an excellent form of what I like to refer to as interpersonal communication, meaning between two or more people. The skill of interviewing is excellent because it, by the use of questions, elicits responses from people. See, oftentimes when we tell people what to do, and we don't bother to ask, do they understand, agree, etc., we have no way of knowing that there's going to be some form of action. You see, we talk about us being leaders, but the definition of a good leader is one who is able to affect one's behavior, get action from them, results. Well, the skill of interviewing, which unfortunately sometimes we only associate with employment, with the hiring function. I have found that the skill of interviewing can be applied to all 7 of these functions that you do with your employees. In the life of your relationship with an employee, you start out by hiring them, you orient them to the job, the role, the company, you coach them along. In other words, you help train and develop their skills. And then, of course, we evaluate. We see how well they're performing. Are they living up to the standards which we put in place? Then if there's some problems, we give some counseling, hopefully nipping these problems before they become discipline issues. And then, of course, if the discipline process doesn't work, we have to usually terminate. But I like to refer to that particular interview as an exit interview. You could use that to either terminate someone, or should they resign or leave, you would want to interview them as to why they're leaving and what they felt about you and the company. So we're going to look at these functions and the specific role that each one plays and how it can make you a more effective manager. That's the whole gist of today's program, is to make you a more effective manager. Over the years, in my experiences, and when I also was at your level as a manager and a supervisor, I oftentimes took too many things for granted when I communicated to people. Most of my style in my early years was just telling them what to do. And then often enough, I would get upset when the results weren't there because I made the big mistake in managing of assuming. And as you know, when one assumes, one is making a mistake because we have no way of knowing unless they feed back to us, did they understand and did they agree to take the action we asked? Well, you see, when you interview in each of these processes, the skill of interviewing elicits a response because when one interviews, one uses questioning. In other words, what we do is we ask people questions. And in their response, we learn and see, did they understand? Did they agree? Are they going to take action? Well, let's look at some of these specific ones. Well, the most obvious one, of course, is when we do the hiring, when we bring them in, sit down, and talk to them to find out what their background is about and what they can do to help us in getting the jobs or the results that we need. Well, once we hire them, it's been my experience and my recommendation to you that you do a very thorough orientation. Now, oftentimes the Human Resources Department or the company itself will provide an orientation as to what the company is about, what it's like, what are its benefits, salary, all of that. But I'm recommending to each and one of you, when you have a new employee who comes to work for you, that you take time in the very first day he or she is there to sit and spend at least a half hour to 1 hour talking to them about what you expect of them. Not just the job description, though the job description is important, you also want to tell them what are the standards of performance so that they know what you're expecting from them and what you're going to measure them. Then in that orientation, you ought to also give them a sort of idea as to what kind of training they're going to receive, who they're going to work with, and what they can expect from you. What do you like? So this way there's no misunderstandings after that. From that, our next role is to give them some coaching. Now, oftentimes they're usually trained formally in a classroom or they're trained on the job by one of their co-workers or one of your best employees as to the specific skills of the job. But it's incumbent on you to at least once a week, bring them in, sit with them, see how they're learning, see how they're doing, and what you need to give them so that they can become more effective at the job. Look, you can compare it to sports. I like to use the comparison to sports because you take some of the professional teams in basketball, baseball, football, etc., all have a coach. Now, these people who are on these teams know how to play the game, but they constantly need to have their skills further developed, shown where they're making mistakes, shown where they need more development. Then after a period of time, we usually use 90 days.